It was right here on this channel that we predicted in the last video that this Jirongo accident in Naivasha, Manenos, would unravel quickly and we would be able to get a lot of information, to try and figure out what may have happened. However, I did not predict how quickly this would happen. How so much info would emerge so quickly. So that on my video today, we will be able to at least make some conclusions, things we are very sure about, based on evidence, and especially scientific evidence. Now, friends of the late Jirongo apparently got together very quickly and got accident experts on the job, and they have come up with a forensic audit report. And what this forensic audit report reveals, not only that, eyewitnesses, people who spoke to the late Jirongo just a few hours before the tragic Naivasha story. And oh my, the picture that emerges, I can tell you very early, is very, very far away from an unfortunate accident. Actually, it has stage managed written all over it. Now you see story Ajaba, that is not a rumor, all based on solid facts, evidence, and even forensic scientific evidence. Anyway, let's get right on it right away. Karibuni sana, twende kazi. I will start with an insider tip from the son of a cop, and it is the following. Normally, accident reports by the police are not done as quickly and as carelessly as what happened in Naivasha after the crash, head-on collision, allegedly, that took the life of the late Cyrus Jirongo. It never happens like that. Indeed, you can bear me witness. If you have ever witnessed policemen on the scene of an accident, they take measurements, don't they? They look at a lot of things before they come up with their report. But what happened in Naivasha is puzzling. In fact, it would seem that somebody had written a report hurriedly before the fact. And clearly, unfortunately, somebody who does not understand these things. And therefore the result is a total mess. Where the phrase head-on collision is repeated again and again so that the report looks like a narrative, propaganda narrative, prepared to sell a certain story. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of this mind-blowing Manenos, please allow me very briefly to mention our sponsors for today's show, which is a 50 by 100 plot in Isinya, in a gated community called Diaspora Village. Now, some years back, I lived in Isinya, very beautiful place on the plains of Masailand. And the person looking to sell this property is a dear old member of this channel who has supported us for a very long time. And the asking price is only 2 million, negotiable. It is not breaking news that Nairobi is bursting at the seams, and therefore developments close to the city in the sun are a hot cake. That is not breaking news. And therefore, in my opinion, this is an excellent investment. Now you can see a number on your screens right now, 0718-390-229. If you're interested, please get in touch quickly, teke, yeah, and speak directly to the owner. Right. The late Cyrus Jirongo was seen by multiple witnesses, yeah, hours before this accident, in quotes, at a place called Karen Oasis, where he was meeting Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula. And we are told that this was a business meeting. Jirongo was seeking to do business with a circle associated with the National Assembly, and he wanted Wetangula to introduce him to the relevant people in charge. One of his closest friends, George Kanyiri, who was amongst the people who saw the late Cyrus Jirongo at Karen Oasis, called him later at exactly 10:58, and they spoke until 11:03. And Jirongo told Kanyiri that he was leaving almost immediately. Maybe because Kanyiri had joked, yeah, and asked him what he was doing out so late, and yet they had a planned meeting for the next day at 1 p.m. at the house of Philip Kisia. And now the mystery remains. What happened between 11:03 p.m. and 3 a.m. the next morning? What happened to Bwana Jirongo? Because in my opinion, the Karen Oasis eyewitnesses are the last reliable eyewitnesses in this saga. Okay? In my opinion. Why? Because the eyewitness reports from Naivasha, the scene of the crash, I am really doubting for a number of reasons, including the fact that if you care to listen carefully to them speaking, especially the driver of the bus, you will quickly notice that this sounds like a script. Somebody may have been told what to say. And what is more is we did not have any eyewitness reports from the so-called passengers of the bus. Apparently none of them saw anything, and they all quickly vanished into the night forever. Very, very fishy. Don't you agree? And then there's the question I raised in my previous video, very early on, when I did not know so much about this whole saga. And it was simply the question, what was Jirongo doing in Naivasha at 3 a.m. in the morning? And to make it even more puzzling, his car traveling towards Nairobi. Eish! Very, very strange. His relatives and close friends echo the same in one very simple question. How was a man who was leaving the Karen Oasis headed for Gigiri, and he left shortly after 11 p.m., and we have people the late Jirongo spoke to telling them that he was in his way home, how did he then end up in Naivasha? That one, that particular question will give a big headache. In case this whole thing was stage managed, it will be a very big headache to create a story, a narrative to explain that. Okay? Now, again, in case this was stage managed, I want us to focus on a problem those who may have wanted to stage manage this encountered immediately. And it is simply the following. A Mercedes-Benz and head-on collisions? There is a problem there. And the problem is this. Engineers at this German car maker have put in a lot of work over many years to ensure the safety of somebody driving this vehicle who gets involved in a head-on collision. Now on your screens, you can see two different testimonies from two different accident incidents which involved a head-on collision. Bottom line, there are just too many safety features that would keep a Mercedes-Benz driver very safe in case of a head-on collision. Indeed, many years ago, I had just come out of school. I witnessed an accident happening. I was there, where a Mercedes-Benz came at very high speed and rammed into the back of what we used to call those days a Kenya bus service. These were these huge coaches that the Kenya bus service used to run a service in Nairobi. Yeah, all the Kenyans will remember. And I was utterly amazed. This is not a video I saw. This is not a story I had. I was there. And the reason why I was amazed is that on impact, the Mercedes-Benz bounced off the back of that bus. I'm not kidding. And reversed into a ditch. This particular accident happened on Ngong Road. Yeah, very close to the Coptic Church. For those who know the road well. I'm assuming the Coptic Church is still there. And later on, a friend of mine who knew a few things about vehicles, and especially the Mercedes-Benz, explained the whole process to me. And I was totally impressed. Now, with this information, what the accident forensic audit report tells us makes a lot of sense. We realize that any would-be stage managers had a huge problem with this head-on collision narrative, simply because that would not have produced the results they were looking for. We are told Jirongo had 2 broken ankles, a broken arm, but no serious head injuries. This was contrary to the police report, yeah, of a head-on collision and serious head injuries that caused his death. Okay, probably pre-written by somebody who does not have the information I've just given you. Now this forensic audit report in summary, yeah, if I can summarize it in one short phrase, says what happened here were complex multi-impact events. Now, bila kizungu mingi, what that means is that Jirongo's vehicle was hit more than once, several times, which of course has stage managed written all over it. The audit showed clear evidence of impact from the back, impact from the right front side, the driver's side, and then the final impact on the front of the vehicle, which the report describes as a secondary impact. Secondary means it was not the primary, it was not the main impact. And what is more interesting is that the experts say that the damage to the front of the car, yeah, is consistent, wait for this one, is consistent with a self-initiated frontal collision, yeah, and not only that, and this is the most mind-blowing part, it is consistent with a violent short distance self-initiated collision with something immovable like a bus chassis. Let me break that down. Self-initiated means it was done deliberately. The vehicle was hit deliberately against something that is not moving like a bus chassis. Eish. Bila kizungu mingi, that forensic audit report commissioned by Jirongo's friends rules out completely anything the police said about the accident, especially this story of a head-on collision that ended his life, which even a layman who understands the safety features in a Mercedes-Benz, especially these modern Mercedes-Benzes, will rule out immediately. What? In other words, it is very, very difficult to believe that this was an ordinary accident. Very difficult. You have to work very hard, create so many stories, and still it will not fly, to try and prove that this was a normal accident, as described by the police. Instead, what makes sense is a stage-managed accident, in quotes. And so, we need to ask, who would have wanted Cyrus Jirongo out of the way? And why? After all, politically, he's not that powerful, is he? He is not a Raila Odinga, the late, for instance. He's not. So, who would have wanted Cyrus Jirongo out of this planet, and why? Fascinatingly, the suspects are very few. Oh, they're so few. Because the most likely motive for what happened here was the information that Cyrus Jirongo may have had that would have probably messed up some people's plans. That is the most likely scenario here. You know, even without all this information that I've just given you, I got very suspicious when information started coming out, negative information against the late Cyrus Jirongo. Does that sound familiar? Of course it does. In past hits by the state, we have had the same thing happening. You will remember the incident in Karen involving the lawyer, Chalo Mbobu, not too long ago. You remember how information started coming out thick and fast about how he owed debts, etc., etc. Very clearly trying to give us the narrative, which still did not make sense, that maybe somebody who owed money had done him in. I'm sure most of us remember that. The very same thing, identical thing, has been happening over Cyrus Jirongo. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the late Jirongo was Safi Kama Pamba. No! There were many controversies surrounding his life, including how he made his money through his close links with Kanu during the Moi days. And of course that is corruption. And just as by the way, a man called Nicholas Biwott, deliberately finished Jirongo financially. He messed up the man completely until he became broke from being a billionaire. Okay? Anyway, I am not saying Jirongo was clean. However, the timing of those stories is very suspect. How all that information can very suddenly come out. In fact, information that is not very easy to get. I'm a journalist and I know. But then all of a sudden, it comes out as a package. You know what that means? It means that it is highly likely that it was carefully prepared for release after the fact. And indeed, this is another very important clue that will help anybody interested in getting to the bottom of this. Because it points to the possible suspects. Please allow me to leave it there for now. But I can assure you, more information is coming out that will clearly paint a picture for us of the real suspect of what happened here. You know, we have said on this channel many times, this is the wrong season to do some things. Because although this is a season of deception, it is also a season of exposure. There is so much that has been exposed. In this season, it is very difficult to get away with deception. By the way, it is the season of the friends of Kumekucha and supporters of this channel. Na wale mashabik sugu, for those who understand Kiswahili. And this time round, I have decided to give something back, with a very crazy offer. that is now coming to an end. Yeah, therefore you must move with speed. You can see the details on your screens right now. Because to qualify for this crazy offer, which is my small way of giving back at least something small, to you faithful supporters who are sticking with me even during these very hard economic times. Okay? To qualify is very easy. All you have to do is that after your latest gifting, yeah, just drop me an email and I will give you a permanent golden key, which gives you free access to everything Kumekucha, past, present and future, without you ever having to pay anything ever again. It is a permanent golden key. You just have to make sure that your gift, your donation, is not less than Kenya shillings 1,900. So please rush. This is coming to an end at any time. Please rush and take full advantage of it. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.